I'm back with another video. This video is going to be about Liverpool versus RB Leipzig in the Champions League, and it's going to be made using keyframe. So let's get right into it. So a little bit about Leipzig's shape. They played in a 5-3-2 in the defensive phase. They used their front two forwards to press primarily the central defenders in the Liverpool first line of build-up, and from here usually the press was ignited in about a 3/4 press, just a bit higher than the mid block, and they would then press Liverpool into their defensive third. The wingbacks were a bit asymmetrical in the defensive phase because of their orientation to players like Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson and the different roles these players played. The three midfielders behind the two forwards for Leipzig oftentimes played as a holding midfielder and two more advanced players, putting them in closer proximity to the second line of Liverpool's build-up shape and in the central corridors where a lot of the movement from Liverpool is derived from. So in Liverpool, Fabinho came back in the team as a holding midfielder, which helped them out a lot and freed up players like Wijnaldum and Thiago Alcantara to then have a more free role in more advanced positions and be more flexible by moving into the half space as we see here. So when the press is ignited, we see Sabitzer, one of the midfielders, the central midfielders for Leipzig. He jumps out to go and press Wijnaldum, who's a deep line playmaker in the half space here, dropping outside the width of the two central defenders for Liverpool, which releases the Andy Robertson to go into a higher area. And as we see here, also Trent Alexander-Arnold playing as a deep fullback, almost connecting as an asymmetric back four, but giving close connections to have a sturdy circulation structure. But from here, with Sabitzer pressing from in to out, he presses on the diagonal to maintain diagonal connections to his teammates and prevent diagonal passes from Liverpool entering the central corridor, where they'll have a false nine through Diogo Jota and players between the lines, varying their height and their width. So from here, the two forwards would then maintain their connection as well to go and press the ball, as we see diagonally, using their cover shadows to prevent access into players like Fabinho, and now by going man-to-man in their pressing situation, so Sabitzer on Wijnaldum, and matching up with each of the players, it more effectively uses their cover shadow and puts pressure onto Liverpool and forces them back into Alisson. So when Alisson's on the ball, Leipzig continued the press many times and curved their runs to press Alisson into a wider area. And from here, Leipzig became more option-oriented as well as some man orientation, as we see here. Sabitzer tucking back inside, maintaining multiple connections, as was a trend through the midfielders, jumping on to then press the second line of Liverpool's build-up shape. And as we see here, we have the Liverpool second line players, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Fabinho, and Wijnaldum, creating the three in front of the two central defenders, which is often the case, and allowing for more free-roaming attacking players in advanced areas. And we'll see the numerical advantage that Liverpool are able to create through Diogo Jota and now Thiago, overloading Campbell, the holding midfielder for Leipzig. And as we see, the three players for Liverpool in their second line of build-up, which is crucial for a lot of their rotations, ignites a wingback and two offensive midfielders to go and press. So the wingback here, playing asymmetrically, he jumped higher to then press Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was playing much more deep than Andy Robertson was. So creating this man-oriented look from Leipzig, which then gave them an asymmetric back five, and it put the holding midfielder in a situation of numerical inferiority, having the false nine and Thiago Alcantara behind him. And then now we see protecting the last line of defense, 4 defenders against Salah and Mane, who are effectively pinning 4 of the 5 defenders, as we see here. And then we also see the different positionings of one wing back from Leipzig compared to the other, based on the roles that the fullbacks from Liverpool played in possession of the ball. So now, looking at the base structure again from Liverpool, as we said before, we have our 2 central defenders, Alisson in circulation if needed, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Most of the time his positioning was much deeper, and with Wijnaldum moving into a wider area into the half space. This would then release Andy Robertson most of the time to occupy a higher and wider area, creating width and height for the Liverpool attack, while Fabinho maintains his pivot role, controlling the central corridor and freeing up movement in the half spaces for the other midfielders. So from here, Leipzig countered this, as we said before, with 2 forwards and a staggered 3-man midfield with 2 more offensive midfielders and a clear holding midfielder, when they would then stretch into their high block, which created more horizontal lines, thus maintaining vertical compactness. In the Liverpool press, Leipzig built up and rotated their back 5 to accommodate for the goalkeeper's positioning in the first line, so there would be actually 2 central defenders on the right side, if we could see on our screen, but we can't. But there are 2 central defenders on the right side, creating asymmetry and trying to take advantage of the Liverpool press from Mane, from pressing in to out, or out to in I should say, using his cover shadow to force play into players like Diogo Jota, who's holding the pivot area around Kevin Campbell. And by doing this, the Leipzig progression was many times using the half space in different ways to then either release pressure, drive further forward, and then play a pass diagonally through the half space, taking advantage of the pressing mechanics of Mane, or playing a third-man movement from an attacking midfielder, dropping deeper, and then laying the ball off to a fullback or the other central defender. So as we just mentioned, the central defender advances the ball ever so slightly, freeing up the passing angle through the half space to then take advantage. And we even see Sabitzer here dropping deeper, attracting Gini Wijnaldum to then join Jota, controlling the double pivot from Leipzig, but freeing up the half space for the advancing wingback or central defender who is free, and creating asymmetry in the first line of build-up. So now another picture from Leipzig, a little bit more clear maybe. We have our 2 of our 3 central defenders being split by the goalkeeper. Mane's press is initiated, and now we have Diogo Jota controlling the pivot, and we have our 2 other midfielders looking a little bit more man-oriented and trying to cover the front 3 players. So if Salah were to jump or Diogo Jota were to jump, then Thiago Alcantara and Gini Wijnaldum would then be there to cover and control the half spaces to then prevent attempts through diagonal passes or any sort of progression through them. So here, a third man movement, as we talked about, Sabitzer coming from the blind side of the Liverpool players to then receive the ball and play the free central defender, who then has more time and space to try and pick a further pass forward. Sometimes Liverpool would be able to effectively press and win back possession higher up the field, or force them into a less controlled clearance. Moving into the midfield third, Leipzig created their back three in possession of the ball in their double pivot, which they often did. Then from here, they had players occupying each of the half spaces in advanced areas, so this put them in the blind spot of the Liverpool midfield and the front line of pressure. But for Liverpool, they played their 4-3-3, so they had their front three players and their three midfielders, who would then look to press out to in, forcing the ball through the center and forcing them into the double pivot, which was a highly dense area in terms of pressure, and it often worked out that their structure was able to then force turnovers, and Leipzig had trouble breaking this pressure, especially when Liverpool got the cues right and got their pressing dynamics spot on. So here, as we see, one of the biggest things is Liverpool's diagonal compactness here, preventing diagonal passes into the central corridors from Leipzig, which when Leipzig break the pressure through diagonal passes and have access to their advanced area options, this is when they get dangerous. But Liverpool have good diagonal compactness, force the ball into a less efficient zone, and we can just see how the structures match up here, and their cover shadows would be highly effective just because of the distances between them and their orientation to the Leipzig first line of pressure. And then Liverpool are able to get close enough to put in a challenge, and now we can just see the front line of Liverpool's press between Salah, Jota, and Mane, and how they're covered through Fabinho and the two-man oriented offensive midfielders to the double pivot, preventing any first-line passes and breaks in the Liverpool press. So that's the analysis, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.